Ahoy, hoy, friends. Welcome to the Salon. We did it. We've made it to the end of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It is week 7 in our thumb war, which means season 7. It's a roller coaster of a season. We're going to get into it. How's the panel doing? Krista, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm hanging in there. I think I may be in the minority here, but I think season 7 was kind of a mess.
Oh, no. We're going to get into it for sure. Speaking of mess, Trev, how are you?
Oh, it's my nickname in college. I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Lovely. Joanne, how's it going over in Tennessee?
It is what it is. How about that?
Yeah, your cooker's a mess. Will, how are you and Walter?
We're good. Recovering from illness. I had a sudden, unexplainable, horrible stomach virus last 2 days. So haven't eaten solid food in a while, so feeling very skinny. But we're good, and Walter's good too.
Yes. Yeah. Well, friends, welcome. This will be our last time ever talking about Deep Space Nine ever again on the Salon. No, of course not. It's an amazing series. This has been super fun the last couple of weeks. But tonight we will be talking about season 7. But of course, before we do that, we always like to set an intention. Tonight will be a little bit different though. But I want to turn it over to Trev for that.
I still need my intro. And the only reason I need my intro is so that you don't see me reach for the candle. I just appear to be holding it mystically. Yes, tonight's intention setter is a little different, only just because we want to bid a fond farewell from Earth for Star Trek actor Kenneth Mitchell, who fought quite hard and for quite a long time with ALS, and has left us, but left us after a warrior's battle, and we wish him well in his next journey as he ventures off into the universe. And so, to Ken. Cheers, Saloners. And back to you, fearless leader.
Thank you, Trevor. So you guessed it. It's the last of the Star Trek Deep Space Nine Thumb Wars, season 7. It's a season. Let's get into it. So for the audience, a little bit different tonight. We're still going to go through each episode to vote, but because this season, even more than the past couple of seasons, is very serialized, we're going to batch a couple of the episodes together just to keep this moving, talk about all the things that we want to talk about, try to hit all of the greatest hits of this season. So Trevor will read through a synopsis, one he did not write. It might be great, it might be bad. Every week is a pleasant surprise in that regard. We'll discuss and then give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. A few we might skip, but let's see how it goes, which is what I think the writer's room said when they plotted this season.
I would be very curious to see that whiteboard. But yes, let's get started, shall we? Season 7, we are batching episodes 1, 2, and 3 for our discussion. So I will read through the titles and summaries, and then we'll rip them to shreds. Season 7, episode 1, Image in the Sand. With the wormhole closed, okay, it already sounds like the wormhole is a restaurant. With the wormhole closed, Sisko struggles for a way to contact the Bajoran prophets. Kira opens a Romulan military hospital. No, she doesn't. Dax's new host arrives in his hour of need. I, again, didn't write it.
That sentence is
Sisko.
Yeah, mess.
It's just bad. It's just poor grammar, but whatever. It's also like semicolons run amok, but whatever. Season 7, episode 2, Shadows and Symbols. Sisko meets Ezri, the new host of the Dax symbiont, before departing Earth for the planet Tyre. With his father, Joseph, and his son, Jake, as he begins his search for Bajor's mythical Orb of the Emissary. That's actually fairly accurate, with the exception of sort of leaving out everything else going on back at the station. And season 7, episode 3, After Image, everyone who knew Jadzia Dax reacts strongly to Ezri Dax's presence, particularly Worf.
That's
That's
actually,
both shitty and accurate all at the same time.
and it's also a great jumping off point for a rant of mine, but
Let it out,
I don't
girls.
want
Don't hold this
I don't
back.
want to take up all of the space, but I am gonna rant about our newest character. But let me turn it over to the crew first. William, how about you kick us off with these episodes?
I have an issue with the season as a whole regarding they're kind of leaning into the mysticism of what's happening here, where before it felt like there was a good balance between the scientific end of what the prophets are, the wormhole, that the Bajorans' faith, worship of the wormhole aliens. And I think now at some point we crossed into something else where it feels more like magic.
It's
Where
Star
now
Trek
instead of
Charmed.
yeah, it feels a little like that. It's like if the CW wrote a season of Deep Space Nine, and these first 3 episodes I think are interesting. I think that some of the revelations are a little ridiculous, like, you know, with Cisco's real mother and like what that means, and these kind of like these other stuff. It all seems a little too coincidental, and I feel like a show that was kind of prizing itself on being kind of serialized and keeping that kind of motif going through. I think that some of the stuff that's happening here, it feels like a correction of some sort in order to get to an ending that they have determined or they don't know yet. Like it seems very bizarre to me. And like the introduction of, we all know, you know, everything that's happened with Jadzia and like the actresses and all of this, and yeah. But like, I did find myself enjoying Ezri more on this watch than I have prior. I did find the dynamic of her character, to be refreshing. I do hate when they constantly introduce new people into seasons that are later, and it would have just been better if we just didn't have Dax, if they just left this alone. But I don't know. It just felt a little flat. I don't know. It just felt like they were trying at something, but it didn't feel earned, and it felt a little un-Star Trek, I guess, is my point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah, I felt on this rewatch recently the introduction of Dax, Ezri Dax, was a bit of an issue for me because we had a late 20s actress playing an early 20s character, but in a way that felt very late teenage, kind of collegey to me at first. Gets super weird with what happens with Worf later on, given the age gap, for sure. Plus, what we know about rejoining and how that's not supposed to happen, etc. But I loved Ezri later on in the series when she really did find her own, when she went after Worf until what happened. We'll get there. Like taking that initiative, really owning the Dax symbiont, like seeing that kind of growth was really cool. Unfortunately happened in this season though, because halfway through this rewatch, it kind of felt to me like they thought that they were going to get a season 8, which of course they didn't. They knew season 7 was going to be the last. They're like, let's introduce this new character. Let's give them a backstory. Let's do a few things, even though we have 7 years to tie up at this point. We'll rush it at the end. Don't worry. Krista, you had your hand.
I was just going to say, to piggyback on Will, that it seemed like they all the convenience for the previous 6 seasons, there was none of that. And it's like they pulled out every single one they could find in the closet for this season, and it's jarringly obvious. The only thing that I found interesting about Ezri in these first 3 episodes was the fact that everybody's response to her being a therapist was, "You're a therapist?" Because yeah, she's like pixie dust. She's a happy little unicorn. She's gonna hook up with Cisco because he's gonna really explain, the situation for her, when it would seem to me that it would be better if she maybe went to the academy, the Trill Academy, and studied with them instead. It doesn't make sense, the reasoning for her being there. And the thing that really annoyed me the most was that they didn't have to change any of the stories coming down the line at all if they had put Dax in a male form. And it, in fact, would have made the stories more interesting versus what we got. I would like to have seen that. But I think her character annoyed me and Vic's character annoyed me. And after I've had some time to think about it, my headcanon is these writers, these producers, these actors, this entire show was really dedicated in going off into this field versus whatever had happened beforehand. And they were really dedicated to it. They put a lot of time and energy and love into it. And this is the last season. And I really believe that the first, say, 14 episodes being dedicated to really fleshing out Vic and fleshing out Esri and all of that is because the writers didn't really want to say goodbye to the core group. And they were kind of invested in this, well, let's write these new people as a means to kind of not have to get to the mourning and the grieving of saying goodbye to these characters that had become very real to them. And in that aspect, I can understand why so much time was devoted. As a viewer, I don't like it, but I can understand where it's coming from, and I can magnanimously forgive it. But that said, she's an awful counselor, and it does strike very much like, freshman year college sorority girl, just very excited about everything. And it was, I felt like I needed dialysis after a while. It was just like, that's enough, saccharin. I'm done with this. So not a fan. Even in the later, not a fan.
Yeah, the therapy with Garrick was rough. I like that. I like them interacting, but like maybe this is just because I've been in therapy. I'm like, oh God, she's awful. Like, they did not talk to a therapist about what the process looks like, and maybe the process is too boring for TV. I don't think so, but oh boy, it was rough. Joanne, did you have thoughts on these first couple of episodes?
I hated them, and the best part was Garrick reading Esri for filth. Just
Dragged her
down, dragged her to the ground, and I got my entire life watching it again. But yeah, I was wondering, I'm glad you cleared that. I was wondering if they knew this was the final season, going in. And I think you're right, Krista. This is just like grief and depression kind of, playing out in real time for the writer's room. And we'll talk about it when we get to Covenant, but I'm like, oh, kind of some of their influences have been really clear and powerful over the previous seasons, but it came into kind of sharp relief for me. Like I said, I'll talk about it more when we get to Covenant, but I was just like, oh, this is why this is such a train wreck, if this is one of your sources, right? So yeah, I hated this. And I tried to go into it again being, like, oh no, I'm going to give this a chance. I would fall asleep. I hated it.
I'm glad you brought up Covenant, though, because that does remind me to talk about Colonel Kira. She's been promoted, finally. I mean, she's in temporary command of the station, so it makes a little bit of sense. It makes a lot of sense. She's a great character, and, 6 years in that post, you deserve a promotion. However the militia works. But we did get a lot of really awesome badassery of Colonel Kira on the bridge of a starship, holding out her blockade against the Romulan warbirds, a hopeless cause. It was, I think, I hate to frame it this way, but I know some writers do think of it this way. Like, some writers have said things like, well, if you want to write a strong female or male character, just write a character and then pick the gender based on whatever. Like, sometimes people have talked about female characters that are strong, perceived as stronger, as having been written as a male character, but then the gender just got flipped for whatever reason. It's because a lot of writers just don't know how to write women. Luckily, they got it right with Kira. But what I loved in this set of episodes is you got a storyline that would typically go to a male character, like standing up against the odds. And Nana just, again, acts the hell out of it. It was awesome to see her on the bridge of a ship. Joanne's raising, or Krista's raising her hand. I love it.
Well, because I'm muted. Am I the only one that feels like this grief that Worf is experiencing and this need to blow up a shipyard is kind of unearned? Like, I didn't see the passionate relationship. Like, it's almost after the fact. Like, in the previous, I never saw the passion. And
it felt more like guilt to me.
Yeah, even in a dire situation, he chose duty and honor over her, and now suddenly it's, you know, imperative that she. And again, it just harkens back to that, to the Worf of it all.
Mm-hmm.
They just trot out this, you know, tired honor thing with Klingons. And
I also have an in-universe criticism here with the circumstances surrounding Ezri getting the Dax symbiote. Like,
right.
I get Cisco was incapacitated because of the wormhole collapsing. What was Worf's excuse for not getting the Dax symbiote onto the Defiant himself and making sure his wife's memories and everything that she held dear, something he knew was important to her, got to Trill? For plot. It's for plot, of course, whatever. Like, but I hate Worf for it anyway.
That's the silliness of the plot. Like, it wasn't silly before. Like, it wasn't so overtly silly. And if there's anything I know about that I have learned about the Star Trek fandom as a whole, is that they will dissect the most minute details, the minutiae ad nauseum. And so,
do we do that?
Yes. And so to go this direction, I was just like, this is really, like, did you imagine that we wouldn't notice? There's just some very strange conveniences. And I think that the previous season, they'd sort of written themselves into a corner. The wormhole is closed. All the orbs are dark. Cisco took his baseball. I mean, it's like they really needed to do the whole Bene Gesserit. This is why he has an affinity to the Bajorans. It was a whole Bene Gesserit prophet sleeping with, Joseph, and he's actually part prophet, part Bajoran, part, mystical being. And that's cool because it goes back to the first episode where he feels compelled to stay when he was prepared to leave. So that's a nice bookend. It makes sense to me. But the rest of the 3 episodes make no sense to me because none of the things are earned. There's no, it's an empty, it's an extreme case of willing suspension of disbelief. And we do a fair amount of that, but this is a lot for a series that prided itself on really making statements and doing the full swing. This is hunting for
Trevor. How about you Will, and then Trevor will close us out and move us to voting.
Can I say something that might stir the pot a little bit?
Be brave.
Better than
Okay,
anyone
I'm
I
gonna be
know.
brave. I don't think it's gonna stir the pot, but I'm gonna say something that's been on my mind about the since we've kind of come to the end of the Worf. I guess we will. I guess I could save it for later. I have an opinion about Worf's relation to Jadzia and Worf's relationship to Dax. I think Worf felt he was in a relationship with Jadzia and not in a relationship with the Dax symbiont. And you can see in the way he doesn't respect her culture because of the way he treats Ezri.
Yes.
Exactly. Fuck Worf.
Right.
She's respected his culture, and he treats her like she was a Klingon, not like she was Trill. So that's what I was, because seeing when you made that point about him not taking the Dax symbiont back to Trill, because that's his wife. His wife is the Trill. That his wife's memories, what makes Jadzia is in the symbiont. His wife will live on. Her body is gone. His relationship was with Jadzia, the vessel, and not the Dax symbiont. And I think that plays out a lot with his relationships, especially when we'll see later on with Alexander, where like his relationships. And I don't know if this is. I wish this was written. This was like a deliberate writer's choice, but I just don't think that's the case in this instance. That his relationships with people are very surface level. His relationship with his son is just that this is my son. He doesn't have a deep relationship with him. Even his relationship with Klingon culture is surface. He's the most Klingon, but it makes him so anti-Klingon. He sticks out in Klingon situations. So like, I don't know if it's obviously not a choice by Michael Dorn, but like you see it in his relationship with Jadzia. He has no relationship to Dax. He doesn't respect her culture.
Yeah, Worf is trash. Trevor?
Yeah, anyway.
Well, it's hard to follow that. No, and thank you for that, Will, because that like, not that we don't normally talk about things that I haven't thought about before, but that just kind of blew my mind for a second. Because I was going to say when Krista mentioned it that like, yeah, it would have been cool to see him connect the guilt to like, oh, I'm feeling guilty because, and that just adds like an additional layer to why he should feel guilty. Like there's even more, like he didn't get to know her as well as he should have. So like these episodes could have played out the way that they did had there been that additional resolution. Like instead of Esri solves a murder episode, we could have gotten Worf realizes, oh, I've been doing this all wrong, as an episode, which would have been a little bit more interesting. Season 7 as a whole does feel very drunken, and it kind of starts off that way with these 3 episodes. It does feel all over the place. What is also weird is that normally A plot and B plot in a Deep Space Nine episode don't always have to do with one another, and that's okay. But in this instance, it's really weird. So you've put, I just saw what Krista was laughing at, which is Benji's comment. So please just put it on screen because it's absolutely correct.
It's hot.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't want to think about the fact that he was fucking all those guys, and a few elderly women also, which also is why I sort of cheered because I was very much on this bandwagon last week when Krista mentioned had the symbiont moved on to a male host. That would have added some really interesting nuance, and also given them an opportunity to, 90s Trek danced around the issue constantly of addressing same-sex relationships, and even when they tried to do it head on, still kind of skirted around it by making very safe choices. How powerful would it have been for Worf to look at a man and say, there's part of you that I'm still very much in love with? Like, it doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be like, we get it. Like, he's seemingly, for all intents and purposes, heterosexual as far as he presents, and that's fine. He doesn't need to not be. But some 24th century thought around the being that he was in love with would have been powerful. But what I was saying about A plots and B plots normally in DS9, they aren't always connected, and that's okay. But in these, they seemed very juxtaposed and confusing. In fact, we promote Kira to Colonel and put her in command of Deep Space Nine, and then she jumps on a Bajoran ship and takes off to protect a moon. Like, really? You couldn't put her in a weird command situation on the station? Like, you just gave it to her. which also brings up another complaint that I have about season 7 and the promotion of Kira, which is why did we do it in season 7? It should have happened in season 6. Frankly, it should have happened in season 4 or 5, and we would have avoided the whole weirdness of now we have an equal ranked command officer with the executive officer. What do we do when the militia officer's on the Defiant? Does that mean that Worf's in command? And they did this whole thing where like Worf was the XO of Defiant, but she was the XO of the station, which was just dumb. Like, is there some reason Worf can't report to a woman? I don't understand why that was a challenge. Hashtag 90s writers. So anyway, I didn't dislike these stories. I did enjoy. I think I would have enjoyed Sarah being a wormhole alien versus actually being a prophet versus being sort of possessed by one, because that conjures up some interesting consent conversations that we haven't had. But uh, all in all, these 3 episodes are one story, and they're as all over the place as the one whole story of season 7. So I didn't dislike them, but they hurt my head a little because I'm OCD and I like for things to make sense, and these are all over the place.
Let's vote.
Okay. Image in the sand. Okay. Oopsie. Shadows and symbols, spending most of our time in a orb hallucination. And after image, way too much time with Ezri. Awesome. All right. Well, this season's off to a great start. Season 7, episode 4. Oh, it's not like I was looking forward to this one. Take me out to the Holosuite. Go Niners. Captain Sisko and crew are challenged to a game of baseball by a Vulcan Starfleet rival. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. So description's not horrible. I will save my comments because I think I'm probably going to be alone.
Death to the opposition. This was a maybe discuss, maybe not for time. We are at the hour mark, and we're on episode 4. So maybe breeze through. One thing I will say is this is the only time I think we've seen in Star Trek. I forget exactly what it's called in writing, and I should know by now. But like the jump laugh when Cassidy promises Ben, I won't tell anybody. Immediate cuts to, listen, I told Ben I wouldn't say anything. It's hilarious. It was a lovely moment. Like this episode was silly for a lot of reasons. Vulcans can be trash. I don't like monolithic aliens. It's one of the bad things about Trek. But Vulcans are racist trash. Almost all of them. Including Spock and Tuvok to certain degrees. I said what I said.
All right, I'll go because I love this episode. I just don't love it for season 7. Like there's too much going on for us to just plop this one in. I feel like this would have been maybe we've retaken the station, things we're trying to make things a little bit lighter. Like instead of the wedding, we could have done this, or we could have done the wedding as a B plot to this, or vice versa. In early season 6, but I still love I love the romp. Baseball was very much part of my childhood, so it just I don't know. I find it fun and entertaining, particularly the bits that it gives to everyone else, including Rom, and it gives Lita some fun stuff, and it just I don't know. I enjoy it, though. I think it's funny that I don't disagree that Vulcans are often presented as speciesist, but it is very cringe when Nog can't tell Vulcans apart.
Very.
Also, why are there all Vulcan crew? That drives me nuts. Like it doesn't make sense.
Makes
It's
no
never made
sense. It
TOS
feels
did it.
antithetical to Star Trek.
I'm giving myself a TOS alert. TOS did it, and it was trash then. When they did it, it's trash now. It doesn't make any sense at all. There's no logical reason for it. Thank you. I'll stop that rant because I could do that for days. And the Prosecco's hitting. So anyone
Should we
else?
vote?
I liked Will's half-hearted. Yeah, let's vote. All right, I knew I was going to lose. It's fine. This is a very sideways season, guys. Okay, season 7, episode 5, Chrysalis. Oh, that's exactly how I feel about it. Bashir becomes attracted to a genetically engineered patient, guest star Faith Sally, who is placed under his care. So literally no reference to the fact that we've seen these characters before. We ranted about the depiction of these folks last season, but I'm going to save my rant because Krista has one and I'm going to let her have it.
Yes. Before Krista goes, I have a banner for this episode. And I just want it to be known that I typed this. I saw that there was a typo. I decided to keep it. Krista, take it away.
Listen, my problem with this is just the basic premise that there is something wrong with her because she doesn't behave in a way that people want her to behave. That irritates the fuck out of me. There is nothing wrong with her. And it seems like in order for everybody to accept her the way she is, she's the one that has to change instead of the people around her just simply accepting her the way she is. And that annoys me. The second thing that annoys me is Bashir's continued inability to separate his medical attention from his affections or sexual attention. It's like, dude, you must stop getting involved with your patients. You must stop trying to reform the patients. But this episode does absolutely nothing to improve the idea that people that are different are somehow wrong and thus must be either changed or removed from the general population. And I can't get behind that. And preemptive rant, there's nothing wrong with this woman. There's nothing wrong with any of these people. And they were institutionalized. And yet Esri's running around with a psychopathic Dax in her head where we go full mine hunter. And nobody thought to remove that from society. That can be accessed if she chooses to access it. So it's like these kinds of things, I'm looking at it going, this is interesting. This is, I'm not into this. So that's my rant. Not very much of a rant, but
accurate.
I fully support it.
Joanne, do you want to talk about Dr. Bashir being a creep? I don't want to put you on the spot, but want to make some space.
I appreciate the space, right? But no, he is. He's a creep. He's a creep. No. And you know what? It's really like, well, and to be fair, Star Trek in general is, the lines are often blurry about these relationships, you know, direct reports and higher ups. But I think it is especially egregious for a medical officer. Like, that seems like contrary to their oath, like that they still take, right? In the Star Trek century, whatever it is. So like, why no one thought that these were just kind of problematic blows my mind kind of all the time. And
yeah, even in the 90s, this was rough.
Yeah. So no, that's it. Like, I literally fell asleep like watching this. Like, this was not my season, friends. This was not my season.
Will?
This kind of relationship, there it is. And sometimes I can feel as a writer how you kind of get trapped sometimes in the architecture of what Star Trek is,
because it's hard to delineate the person from their job and slash position, because like the characters wear their uniforms 90% of the time. So it's like, are they always on duty? Why are they always in their uniform? It's weird. Like they'll go someplace and they're in their uniform. And it's like, you should have changed into something out of this. You're at like a function in your uniform. Like I worked for the National Park Service for a little while, and you couldn't wear your uniform to the grocery store, like your park uniform, because you're representing the park outside of like the park itself. So it's like you can't just leave and go to the store real quick in your uniform. Like, and then just like hanging out at Quark's in full uniform drinking. It's like you can't do that. Like it's weird. I know there's a budget for costume and blah blah blah, the logistics of this. But like that's where you run into these romantic relationships where you get Bashir being just like a creep, and like that like kind of old timey like 10 no's and a yes is still a yes, like that sort of thing. It's like this one was your patient and was still your patient while you pursued a sexual relationship with her. I was like, girl, you should have your fucking medical license revoked. Like this is like completely unethical. And it's like I see as a writer how it'd be hard to like remove that person from their job because they kind of are that as the character in the show. But still, it's like it's fucking gross. Like this episode really made me sick to my stomach, and I have had a stomach virus, and I was just like, not it. It was not it, girl. I was like watching this and knowing, like, thinking outside of the like the episode and looking at this from like a bird's eye view, just being like good God. Like it's just they're so desperate to have the handsome guy on the show have a romance, and like it's like, oh, but he needs to be like an unethical sexual predator. Like that's fucking weird. Like it's weird, and it doesn't do a service to a character which could have been really great, but it gets kind of devolved into this, medical predator. Like it's fucking
Their
disgusting.
relationship kind of continues in some of the books, and every time I read it, I was like, "Oh God, no, creepy. This author should not have continued this. Why?" Ugh.
This probably won't make anyone feel any better, but Babylon 5 and DS9 are often compared to each other, and Dr. Franklin, another hot chief medical officer in the world of science fiction, also had several inappropriate relationships with patients. So I think we might just be looking at a weird 90s doctor isn't their profession, it's their first name, like what Will was saying, confusion of role and person. And it's like, well, how else is he going to meet women? Like it's clearly none of.
But they made Bev fuck a ghost. But
Right.
Bev fucked a ghost. She couldn't have an inappropriate relationship with the patient. No, let's have that woman fuck a ghost candle. Ridiculous.
Well, she had one.
There is clearly no ethical.
Oh, she did.
She
did.
And a crustacean. And let's be real.
Yeah,
She went to
that crustacean.
Wow,
She was
big
the
fan of
original
lobster.
Trailbreaker. Yeah.
Big fan of lobster. Does anybody have some clarified butter? I'd like to drip that on there. Thank you.
But I mean, who isn't really?
I'm allergic, but
I don't know if this is because I'm too gay to function. I don't get what you're referencing.
With the crustacean?
Yeah.
That is what the Trill looked like in the little aquarium while she
Oh.
was asleep, waiting for the new.
Got it.
host.
And then
And
I'm
then
on. Yeah, we were
like
talking
a
about the
cat.
same thing.
how's he doing? He's looking. It's like a hamster looking
Yeah.
at. You're like at the lobster aquarium at the Red Lobster. It's Lobster Fest. Here we go. I want that one. Let's have that one.
Dr. Beverly.
Brings all you can eat shrimp to a whole
I'll
new
fuck
level.
it. I'll fuck it all day. That's what
I just had an image of Beverly and like the. I just had an image of Beverly and like the Trill fish tank at like a Red Lobster.
This is what I'm saying. Honey, I got a raise. We're going to Red Lobster. We're going to have dinner with my family. That's what.
Bring the tank. Oh my God.
Wheel it in.
we are off the rails. We are off the rails.
Oh God.
All right, let's
in
see
only
the
the best of ways.
She's
Let's
a
see
big
this.
fan of shellfish.
Let's
Well-
see those
episode
thumbs for
sucks
Chrysalis.
balls.
While we're voting down, I also want to just say that even the name of this episode, given the plot, is highly offensive.
Yes.
Thank you.
Like,
Yeah,
oh,
she
she's
should
just
be
been
reborn.
she's been in a little shell and she's gonna come out
She's
like, oh, fuck yourself.
reformed and she's gonna become a butterfly. Fuck off, Rick Berman.
Yes.
Suck my
yes, yes.
dick.
Suck Krista's dick. That's what I'm gonna say from now on.
All
I'm not gonna
two
say
of
mine
them.
because if I say mine,
All
that's
two of
like
them.
really offensive. But I say Krista's, then it's fine. I feel like we're gonna probably move through these next two pretty quickly, just because they're anyway. Episode 6, Treachery, Faith, and the Great River. Wayun defects, prompting Odo to transport him by shuttle to DS9. That was a bad idea. Also, I don't think they were en route to DS9. Nog shows Chief O'Brien how the Ferengi belief in trade can help him solve difficult supply issues. That part's kind of cute, but really awkward juxtaposed to this clone might be able to stop this Wayun version might be able to stop the war, and then he's being hunted by the Jem'Hadar. And also, look, we're trading desks for stem bolts. Like, it was very, very confusing and very roller coaster. Does anybody want to talk about this, or we just want to vote on it? We're gonna vote.
I liked the Great Material Continuum. I just thought the idea of it was
That was nice.
funny.
I liked that part, even though it was
Up for the Nog storyline. The rest of it, I'm a little
Right.
actually, both story, in my opinion, both would have worked in different episodes.
Good.
Like when they mushed them
Not
together,
at
that's
now.
what broke it for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't a good
Yeah.
marriage. It was like Dr. Bashir trying to fuck a patient. Season 7, episode 7.
That's always good for him. That's always good for
Mhm.
him. What are you talking about?
Also, I saw reference to his spring ball costume, and yes, he should wear it all the time. Season 7, it's a good outfit. I'm just saying. Season 7, episode 7. Once more unto the breach. Worf's attempt to give an aging Klingon war hero one more chance at glory jeopardize an attack mission. Quark thinks Ezri wants to reunite with Worf. Thanks for sharing us what Quark was thinking. Yeah, this is another one that I'm very comfortable just voting on, but I don't know how you guys feel. Oh, Joanne likes it. Joanne, do you want to give us a quick dissenting thought, feeling?
Well, I'm kind of the anti-Stan and how he hates, Klingons. I generally like Klingon-centered stories. And I don't know, I really thought it was an interesting idea about loyalty and friendship and aging, maybe because I'm, 50 something, but I don't know. I liked it in general. I thought it was good.
I just want to clarify. I don't like Worf. I do like Klingons.
My bad. Moo, moo, moo.
No worries. No worries. Just
moving on to episode 8, The Siege of AR 558. Sisso, that's his new name, guys. Sisko and crew fight a brutal ground battle against the Jem'Hadar to maintain an essential communications outpost. That's actually quite a good description of this. And it leads to what I think is a great plot line for Nog. But I'll let you guys talk about it first. Or not.
I'll hit it.
Hit it.
Hit it. I'm glad that we're actually getting a war episode in a show that has centered itself around a fucking war. Like an actual, like, they're actually fighting a war. Like, it's so ridiculous. It feels like everyone talks about the Dominion War, but we rarely ever see it in the context of what war is and its suffering and the brutality of that. And I love the episode. I love its intention. I love the way it's written, but the budget restraints of this show really show through in this episode. Like, this should have been a big Band of Brothers moment, and this shit looks like it was shot in someone's garage. And I know that the budget constraints of the time, I wish someone would just magically pluck this episode and redo it and give it the scope and scale that it so desperately needs. because it makes the Dominion War seem. I don't think we're ever impressed upon how deadly it was. We do later in the show, later this season, we get a little bit of that with the introduction of the Breen, but like at this point, we don't see that, and like how that's affecting people, how your comrades in arms, someone you just get to know, is suddenly killed right beside you. What that means, like someone you've created. We see this in these relationships, but I just don't think the story needed more. This needed more budget, and I think it really does a good job of setting up what that war is. But I think as an audience, it took me out the fact that this was shot in the cave set, that the budget of this, they shot this pretty much in the dark, which they would have had to, but like it's the same 10 Jem'Hadar soldiers they just keep recycling, and like all of this, it does impress the ideas of war, but I needed to see what they're talking about visualized, because we don't see it. But I think it's a great episode, and I think it really does kind of impress that a war is happening. I just needed to see that is like a moment in that show. I needed to see the Jem'Hadar ships landing. I needed to see that this outpost is outgunned, and that they are standing alone in this moment and have to defend this base. But it seemed like there was only like 5 Jem'Hadar, and it's like, girl, you're fine. Who gives a shit? Like, there's 10 of you. You'll do fine. Like, I need to see it. But I guess it's just my modern visual now, where we see that pretty much on the regular. But no, I think it's a finally a war episode in a fucking show that centers around a war. But yeah.
And see, for me, that was kind of the issue. Like, ooh, this is the war episode. Like, this is very fighty. But it also, for me, it was kind of given their explanation about how important this target was, and this communications array thing or whatever. I'm like, why wasn't this place more heavily fortified? And why wasn't it like a priority kind of for Starfleet to keep this, kind of in ship shape? And I mean, and Cisco was often like almost kind of flippant, just like, get your shit together, deal with it, this is your job. And I'm like, so it kind of, those were intention for me. Like, is this an important location or is it not? I mean, and if it is, then give them their resources. It was just, I don't know, it was banana sandwich to me. So I was just like, oh, I don't like this. Although I do think it was an important kind of insight into Nog, and really kind of shaped his sort of character, I think really well. But I don't know. I don't like the fighty things. So
Is this the one where Nog loses his leg?
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Yeah.
And Quark is there for some reason.
Quark is there for some reason. That's not like Quark is there. It's just very weird to me.
They kill Will Robinson.
Yeah.
All
Danger.
right. So
Danger.
I think for me, the only thing that I took away from this episode was that it perfectly encapsulated the idea of war versus the reality of war. And that is what Nog represents. He was Red Squad. He was gung-ho. Let's have some action. Let's do this. And the reality of it is, in theory, it's great because there's no harm in theory. In practice, it's not this beautiful, noble thing. It's you've lost your leg now. Other people are dead. You're alive, and you're looking at all of these people that you were just having conversations with. So I think in endeavoring to present the war, I agree with Will, it's about time we saw it. And I like that they sort of doubled down on it and said, as long as we're presenting it, we're also going to present the noble idea of it versus the reality of it. And I mean, Hemingway made an entire career based on that. It's not the beautiful thing that you think that it is.
I will say, before I lose this point, I forgot to say it earlier. I do think it's very weird that they that Starfleet is essentially a bunch of scientists and explorers, and they're not Marines.
Right.
Like, there are no Starfleet Marines. So what does that mean for a group of scientists and people who are essentially explorers to have to fight a war? What does that mean? How wholly unprepared are you to do that? How unprepared is Starfleet to now have to wage a war against the Dominion, who have an entire wing of Jem'Hadar who are bred for nothing but battle? Do you rely on the Klingons to do that? And it seems kind of what is played here. But like, but what's kind of annoying is you get these guys who are on the front line who are like, you know, like Full Metal Jacket, I've been saving teeth, like that sort of thing, like very Deer Hunter. And it's like, Diva, you've been out there for 2.5 weeks. Like, this war hasn't been going on that long. Like, why are you now all of a sudden fucking Marlon Brando out in the fucking jungle? Like, it doesn't make it. That was annoying to me because I'm like, because we haven't seen the war progress in this way. We haven't seen what it meant for Starfleet to have to now fight a war, because they fought wars before, but not like this. So it's been like border disputes with starships and like, oh, whatever. They haven't been like, I don't think we've seen some in the canon that we have seen this kind of brutal World War II-esque ground, like full scale war. Of course, it's been like disputes and little things here and there. I mean, the Romulan War, but that was all done theoretically with missiles, if we believe what Spock says. But like, that's like a whole other thing. But anyway, I needed to get that out before my brain exploded.
No, I'm glad you did, because I want to know where the Full Metal Jacket guys came from. Because to your point, even if there is a select group of, you know, I mean, clearly some people go into Starfleet to be security officers, and that ends up being their career. But security officers in an exploration force. So like, where did we get the teeth collecting guy? Like, where did he even come from? And what would have been really interesting is maybe he has been an instructor at Starfleet Academy for security officers for the last 20 years. Suddenly he's thrown into war, and everybody that's been lost, it's just a bunch of dead blue shirts. Like, why aren't we showing that not only are we not prepared, but like people have had to do other things in order to accomplish the goals? How has that changed them? How is that, like, we did it at the micro, we did it at the micro level with Nog. We saw what he wanted to be, to Krista's point earlier, what he thought war would be and what he wanted to be as an officer, and the reality, and we get to see later how that changes him and how it sticks with him and effectively grows him significantly, not just as a character, but as a being, and as a concept. But at the macro level, we never see, what does it mean? What does this war mean to Starfleet? We see the losses, we see that it's changed Cisco, we see Cisco's willing to do things for, but not to beat a tired drum, but had we not switched up and had to get to know a brand new character in season 7, we probably would have had more time to flesh things like that out, but we didn't. And so what we're left with is, how the fuck are we here, and who are half of these people? And all of them are human. Like, they're all represented as humans who presumably have not had that difficult of an upbringing. Because remember, Yar was supposed to be unique as coming from this failed colony. But we've got these very gritty, tough people that seem to just, you know, I was born and raised in the tough streets of New Zealand. Like, what? Like, shut up. Anyway.
Yeah, one thing, a criticism of Star Trek that I have to agree with is that for any number of production reasons, budget, it's not the story they're trying to tell, etc. Like, the galaxy can feel very small at times and not very fleshed out. Like, how does Starfleet actually work? You know, we see this all the time with like the first officer and a bunch of senior officers are the ones doing everything on the planet. Like, do you not have a department that does these things? Like, what are you doing? Like, why is your helmsman, your chief of operations, and your chief medical officer going down to the planet when they should send a couple of nurses and people in various departments, etc.? And I wish, for as much as Deep Space Nine did well, something that I think is missing here is flushing out the mechanics of this war. You know, like even just in dialogue throughout 5, 6, and 7 of like a draft, or, you know, a new division was called up and, we've taken on, over 3 million new people into Starfleet as non-coms to be ground soldiers that we've never had before. Like they could have thrown in dialogue throughout seasons 5 and 6 for sure. And so it does make this feel a little hollow because it's all brand new people that like I care that they died, but I don't really care that they died. It's like I didn't know these characters.
Also, give me even if it's a throwaway line, there's contemplation of actually incorporating 31 and making it, because we're desperate, we're losing, we don't know what else to do. Instead, they get one weird episode at the end that we'll talk about. But it would have been, yeah. Anyway, the macro level of the war clearly isn't addressed in a way that makes any of us happy. How did we feel about the siege at AR 558? Ooh, we are all over the place. Okay, up, down, side. So let's decide. All right, guys. Episode 9, Covenant. Kira is held hostage by her arch enemy, Dukat. Again, didn't write this. The leader of a Bajoran cult that worships the evil Pa Wraiths. And of course, it has to happen for budget reasons on Empoknor, which is basically just the Batman villain hideout of space stations in the Cardassian space. So it's basically Deep Space Nine, just with its help. This one felt long and exhaustive for me, even though I love Kira episodes, but I'll let you guys tell me if you liked it or not.
I struggle with this one as a
Joanne.
Kira fan. Yeah, Joanne, take it away.
Go in,
so
Joanne.
This is my lane, right, for episodes, even though I'm like, this is very, very bizarre. But I liked kind of the unpacking of kind of this Pa Wraith mythology, right? And what their beliefs were, or, how where the whole riff kind of came from. And I don't know, I was sitting there kind of watching it again, and it struck me. I mean, at the end, it's obviously, Dukat kind of goes, kind of full Jim Jones or whatever. But when he was talking to Kira, it clicked in me like, and I'm gonna try to say this very diplomatically because I don't want to shit on anybody's beliefs, right? It clicked that I'm pretty certain that's the source of kind of the story he was telling about the battle in heaven and the battle between the Pa Wraiths and the prophets is like a almost verbatim lift from the Book of Mormon. And I went, this says a lot about, I will say, the coinky-dink, inconsistent, I'm trying to tread carefully because, again, I don't want to shit on anybody's beliefs, but it says a lot about the coinky-dink, inconsistent, very made up nature of this episode, but also just of this season, because I'm trying to step around saying that some of the things, not that there are things in the Judeo-Christian Bible that aren't batshit crazy, but some of the stuff out of the Book of Mormon is just like, what were you smoking, right? It's just it's very banana sandwich. But so I was like, oh, this is very interesting, because the Pa Wraiths wanted to really have agency and control and remove kind of the free will of the people. So I was just like, oh, direct lift. So it explains so much for me. But I did like the inside, because it was kind of going back to, we talked about at the beginning, like this is really about, what they worship and what they value. But as much as Dukat kind of believed, he still only really believes in himself, going around impregnating women and blessing, you can't get married unless I say so, which really meant, unless I get a piece first. It was just banana sandwich to me, but it was also very fascinating to me.
And again, not a drag queen. The pastor. The pastor.
The pastor. Not a drag queen. But
feel free to shit on the beliefs. As I say to a bottom talking about his clean out routine, girl, just shit on him.
Just shit. Just paint the whole wall. But I don't know. I kind of liked it, but I also kind of didn't. Because this is where though also Kira.
I was like, wait, Krista was in this episode, and I gotta go watch this again.
It's where she became a colonel.
I would join
the
Krista's
baby
cult.
that was born. I was the illegitimate bastard.
Yeah, we've all joined that cult already.
Yeah, we've all. But that the sign of the covenant was piercing. It was very deep, and fraught with imagery. But it was also just batshit crazy. Do you know what I mean? But I love that level of batshit. Like it tickles all of my fancies. Yeah. So,
right, but they didn't pull a single punch. They just went with it. They were like, "This is batshit crazy," and guess what? It was a South Park episode where we're gonna describe Scientology. People are gonna go, "What?" I liked that what they presented most clearly to me is that faith is such a corruptible thing, and in the end, the guy still takes the pill. And says, I'm doing this for faith. They will go all the way down the rabbit hole. And those that use faith in that way and abuse it in that way are really some of the most evil people that ever existed, regardless of whatever faith you belong to or were making fun of. There's always going to be a person within that group that takes that faith, corrupts it for their own ends. And there isn't a single religion where that has not happened. Joanne, you can correct me if I'm totally wrong, but corruption is in all of them. And I liked that they presented that. But the thing about it is that, from the beginning of the episode, this outcome is not surprising. None of this is surprising. The info dump is interesting, but the circumstances were like, it's Gul Dukat, of course.
I mean, and that's kind of the point, right? There is corruption, right? But because they always lose sight of like this bigger idea, right? And it always becomes about me and my want, my need.
Right.
And so the corruption would not creep in if you could hold on to this, greater good, this larger overarching, kind of thing, because then that would be the focus. We all are committed to this goal, to this action, but it gets corrupted which is again, kind of the parallel story that they're telling about the parades, because I want to control, I want to dictate. I want the glory. I want the worship. And that's where the corruption creeps in. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
And it's a nice counterpoint to Cisco, because for the purposes of control, the narrative is, I have been chosen by these much higher people with much more facility to be their representative. And so I am endowed with this control. And then you have Cisco, who's actually been chosen, who does not run around doing these kinds of things. And, it's, I'm not saying that all religions in whatever form they take are corrupt. I'm saying that there are good actors and there are bad actors. And the one constant is faith. And so you really have to question, when you're looking at a faith leader or a person that you want to believe in, is their faith in something greater than themselves, or is their faith primarily focused on themselves? And in this way, we diverge from the underlying principles of most religions, with the exception of Scientology. I'm just gonna, with the exception of Scientology. Fuck Scientology.
That's
Crazy. No,
I have to say pesto parmesan, my children, or whatever the paw wraiths say. It whatever he says to a costume, whatever. It always sounded like pesto parmesan to me. Let's vote on this episode is what I'm trying to say.
pesto parmesan.
See, Joanne and I like the religious episodes. We love them.
I do.
I like the
I love
religious
that.
episodes. I struggle with this one only because it doesn't do for the Bajoran faith what I feel it should. Given that the Bajoran faith is one of the only ones that I can point to where their faith is in something that we all contemporarily see. It's not a story from 2,000 years ago. It's right there. What it actually is and what it means, sure, we can debate, but like that their faith is in some ways tangible.
Yeah, their gods exist.
Like we can
We've
see
seen them.
They're real. Yeah.
Yeah, and so well that and the other thing that and so this episode, while I like the whole cult story aspect of it, I feel like they ignored Bajoran faith for a really long time, and then when they introduce it, they do it kind of with these weird, like, look, they're all very manipulatable, and it's like why? Like they're like you didn't show us the other millions of them that all follow something that actually is tangible. The other thing is that it takes the cult, and I think Joanne said it. As someone who has more artificial holes in his body than ones I was born with, I don't like the whole piercing being the sign of the bad thing. So anyway, moving on. Sorry, I had to get that rant out really fast, and so I did as best I could. Episode 10.
Can I
It's
just
only
add something really quick though?
Yeah.
If you're dealing with
Can you
community-
though?
Yeah, no, I can't. And here's a
What-
big
what-
fucking-
Hey,
Listen, when you ask it that way, you're setting me up, Krista.
I
Shots
know,
fired.
I
Shots
know.
fired.
When you're dealing with a community that's dealing with famine, that's dealing with inconsistencies in direction, I mean, this is a society in conflict. This is prime opportunity for cult leaders to come up and offer solutions. So I think I don't like the suggestion that somehow these Bajorans are simpletons and they're just falling for it. I think that it's very easy to fall for something that is new and shiny and offering you in verbiage what you have said in your own head, and mirrors that you're asking yourself. So
it makes a lot of sense, even based on what Trev said, why they follow them, because of the occupation. And they have very real gods who can do very real things. And yet they feel like they turned their back on them. So they're going to follow these other ones. So it makes sense.
I just wish we saw more of the not fringe.
Yeah.
It seems like whenever we visit Bajoran faith, it's the fringe. And I wish we saw less of that. Or more of the non-fringe, so that when we saw the fringe, it didn't feel so fringe.
Although that's kind of what the church does today. Like, it's the fringe that, I mean, not that the church doesn't have a bad name on its own, but it's the fringe that gets the attention. It's the fringe that, kind of pollutes the stream.
It's the squeaky wheel. It's only a paper moon, guys. After losing his leg in battle, Nog takes refuge from the trauma in a holographic world of lounge singer Vic Fontaine. Other than hating Vic Fontaine, does anyone have anything? No, I'm just kidding. Krista looks like she's praying to Vic Fontaine.
I'm not praying. I'm saying my main issue with this is you are literally suggesting, as a course of psychological treatment, to take somebody from a real situation and allow him to immerse himself into a completely fabricated situation that has no basis in reality whatsoever. And you're surprised that he doesn't want to leave. You're like, why would he want to go? And I'm all for platitudes and Vic, dropping fortune cookies of wisdom and bumper sticker speak, but the fact that there is a counselor available to actually help him work through this, and what she ends up doing is going and consulting with a hologram
Lounge singer. Not even a
And
hologram
this
therapist.
is how we're going to approach this problem. And then we never see her again.
They
And
literally introduce a therapist to this damn show, and then they don't let her do her damn job.
And I understand that that would be less interesting. That may be less entertaining. But I would argue that the message that you're sending is, if somebody is experiencing very real physical, emotional trauma, the best course of action is to put them in a completely, let them live in their fantasy world until they decide that they want to reintegrate with the real world. I think that that is an irresponsible message. I don't think anybody, yes, you want to be in your safe place, but I don't think anybody gets better by living in a fantasy. I find it interesting that Nog gets to live on a holosuite, but 18-year-old Molly had to live in a shuttle bay learning how to fetch. That doesn't make any sense to me. I do not understand the vacillation in, like, you've got a doctor that's macking on his patients. Like, what the fuck are your medical professionals, your certified people, doing in this society? They're completely, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I just found this, I really felt like they could have followed up the message of war is not really what you make it in your head. And they really could have addressed emotional and physical trauma. They really could have done it. And it might not have been amusing. It might not have been entertaining. But what they instead did was that they used it as a way to facilitate this Vic storyline and this casino and the whole thing. And it's like, I was just like, this just completely took me out of it. I have no respect for this episode because I think it's irresponsible. I think with your fandom and portions of your fandom that experience daily trauma, daily ostracization, daily feeling like they don't fit, I think this was incredibly irresponsible. That's my soapbox on that one. I don't like it. Big fucking thumbs down. Fight me.
Will fight her.
All right.
Defend this episode.
No, I will actually. While I found, I'll do it. Let's go. I empathize and see your point. I do think that if I took the episode and framed it as the time that it's coming from, the mid 90s, it does try a few things, and the framing of it being inside of a holodeck, I think, is also a little bizarre. How having, like, going to therapy and knowing what kind of unraveling traumas and all of that, what that actually is like, and then escaping to a fantasy world is not the best thing for that. I will say, though, that I think the saving grace of this episode, is really Aaron Eisenberg's performance. I think he anchors this in a way that is really spectacular, and he gives a vulnerability that we don't see from Ferengi characters at all, but also from, like, that man is acting through that fucking makeup in a way we don't see until maybe Doug Jones. Like, I don't think we've seen it. Like, he's acting his ass off through that makeup, and it's real and it's vulnerable. I find Vic's character to be deeply annoying. We all know this. But it would have been nice to have a connective tissue to why he is so attached to Nog. Maybe his character served in a war at some point, and he knows what it's like to do that. Make the framing of this holographic character is programmed to understand what it was like to fight in a war. Therefore, he's the best person suited to help Nog through this. but instead he's just hanging out in this lounge and being kind of a scumbag. So it's like, so that takes me out of it for sure. But I think that this is one of the times I think Star Trek does actually get trauma right. That it came back to not just, oh, this thing happened and it was really horrible, just like the kind of breakdown of Nog's character about what he felt about Starfleet, what it actually was to him, and what it's done to him, and how that he says that he's scared, that it's fear that he's feeling, not anything else. It's like, yeah, it just feels like there should have been more connective tissue between those two, and it would have made the holodeck situation seem more. It would have made me like Vic's character. It would have also made the situation of him being in the holodeck a little more tenable. Or have someone go and as we go, can we rewrite the character so he's a war vet? Do something where she's participatory in this. But like, I think on the whole, I think this is one of the few times we get to see what the war is doing to these people. And I think giving it to a character like Nog, to give it to him, to let Aaron perform the way he did in this, I think is a beautiful moment in the season. But I agree with Krista, but I think that all of that kind of stuff I kind of let it go because of that performance. Honestly, I think it really does cover a lot of sins in my mind.
Just as a note on that performance, according to Armin in recent interviews and comments that he's made, Aaron was always very insecure just as an actor in general, and felt like he was never good enough. So hearing you say that, it is one of his, if not his best performance. So watching it through that lens, you're both right. And clearly you both agree with each other because that's all love nods on both ends. So let's vote on it. What do we think? Okay, awesome.
My thumbs up is for Aaron, just to be clear.
Oh, I love that. We're going to move through the next couple kind of quickly, just because I don't think there's probably a lot to talk about. Based on my assumptions about conversations we've already had about Esri, I don't think we give a crap that she went home to visit her family. But anyway, episode 11, Prodigal Daughter. O'Brien vanishes on Esri's home planet of New Sydney. It's not really her home planet, but whatever. While looking for an operative he befriended, Esri's family secrets are revealed. It would be a really interesting story for somebody who had been introduced, I don't know, 4 seasons ago, but I didn't really care, and I don't think you guys do either. Thoughts on Prodigal Daughter?
Can we just talk about the palatial estate with the fine view overlooking the mine? I was like, what the fuck is this?
That fucking quarry, girl. Oh my god.
You got to really love mining to build that house on the edge of the forest.
Jesus. I was like, I mean, they showed it like 4 times. By the 4th time, I was like, yeah, that shit is really what that is.
That's just a quarry. All right, guys, moving on to, oh God, we're in the mirror universe for a few minutes. I'm sorry. The Emperor's New Cloak. Quark and Rom, Armin Shimmerman and Max Grodenchik, steal a Klingon cloaking device in order to save the Ferengi leader from the evil alliance. The summary literally doesn't mention the mirror universe. This episode only exists so that we can revisit it one more time, which is just like we haven't watered it down enough. Although one interesting thing about this episode, and I will challenge you all to rewatch DS9 Mirror Universe episodes, just for the sake that Mirror Garrick is exactly the same as Prime Garrick. And I love that. The fact that he doesn't change is so... I missed it the first several watches, and like suddenly I was like, holy shit, he's the same person. Which is,
and you know, with Andy Robinson, that's a deliberate choice.
That is 100% a deliberate choice from Andy Robinson, and it's fucking brilliant, and I love it. And then why we needed the Esri Kira, like the intendant and Esri, it was just fucking weird. Anyway,
Rick Berman.
I'm
giving it a thumbs up. I like it. It's a fun, silly episode. It should not have happened. It did not need to exist in this season. I will die on this hill. It was just fun and silly. It was dumb. Should not have happened. I will also say
Boo.
the retconning of they don't have cloaking devices when we've seen them decloak.
Decloak. Yeah, that was cringe.
Like I needed a line of like the prototype that we had blew up or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Or yeah. Literally anything other than we're out of I deliver turtles to them. They're out of Goth. It's like something. I don't care. Speaking of things that shouldn't have happened, episode 13, Field of Fire. Esri must work with one of Dax's previous incarnations, the homicidal Joran, to solve a series of murders. That horrible description is actually more interesting than the episode.
I will say that weapon is an interesting thing that like I wish we saw. Like this is a quick aside. When we've talked about different themes for the Salon in between seasons and new episodes, one that we've sort of batted around is like regulations around technology. Like it legitimately should not be allowed to create a holodeck character that looks like someone you work with, Barclay. Like that feels like it should be a regulation. The transporter as a weapon, but in this episode, I'm like, oh, a rifle with a transporter built in. That's interesting. That's well, how does this technology get used for bad? That's yeah. But yeah, this episode is weird and unnecessary. And don't stop giving Esri episodes. Like it's season 7. You have shit to wrap up.
Literally the only reason I've ever rewatched this episode, Stan, go ahead and get that button ready, is Ensign Ilario.
R.I.P.
Just saying, I was very sad when he died.
Yeah.
How do we feel? Field of Fire. Okay. Sorry, I had to get close there and I had to do math. You know how I am. Oh God, moving on to episode 14. I don't like this one either. Chimera. Odo meets a nomadic changeling that tries to convince him to leave the station to find others.
Boo. Odo's
talk about
different.
saving-
We already
talk about-
know.
Talk about saving money. Instead of Martok being a changeling, we just had the actor that played Martok play a changeling.
We don't need another episode in season 7 about Odo being different. We get it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's JG Hex.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah. You couldn't tell by that voice. Anytime he talks, I'm like, there he is. Anytime.
Girl, I just, I don't be paying attention.
It was fairly recent that I realized he was the Vulcan captain in Emissary. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
He pops up a lot. Oh, not as much as Jeffrey Combs, but yeah.
Mhm.
I don't think we needed another episode where whatever changeling comes in and basically besmirches all solids as inferior, and we get it.
I agree, but like we don't need it at this point.
We're clear. I understand. Maybe you couldn't come up with another episode that focused on Esri. Bummer.
I also
the only
like
redeeming
he was addicted to linking. Like, link with me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
She liked to link. She liked to link.
Ow.
This is the weird, like, not weird, excuse me, I don't mean to kink shame, but isn't this the one where he showers Kira? Isn't this the golden shower episode?
The massage episode that was earlier, where he
where he turns into mist and like wraps himself around.
It's the end. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
He turns into the pea mist, and she's like,
he golden showers all over Colonel Kira.
Yes.
Again, ow.
Consent.
The one where Kira fucks a cloud, which is different than Crusher fucking a ghost.
The candle.
The only redeeming thing about this was finding out changelings could become fog. That was neat. Though, how many people breathed in that changeling?
That's called inspired, I think. In the
A bunch of people on
parlay.
the promenade. What's this weird mist?
They were
Yeah.
we're inspired.
It's like you walk outside and you're little changeling in my throat. Sorry.
God.
Or a big changeling.
Or oh, hey.
Joanne.
Hey, it can take any form. It can take any form.
Just let him in. Let him in.
Ah.
Oh my God, 2 changelings at once.
Deep breaths,
no.
deep breaths. Just relax. Just
The
relax.
changeling OnlyFans account.
Just spin on it. It'll be fine. Thoughts on Chimera?
No, hated this.
I don't like
Hated
it.
it.
The fucking character's annoying. I skipped the episode. I was like, fuck this guy. I just went and I was like, fuck him. He's terrible.
Even though I love JG, it was bad. Yeah.
Fucking terrible.
Okay. Episode 15, which I think will be potentially divisive. Bada bing, bada bang. The crew concocts a plan to help Vic Fontaine regain control of his Las Vegas Holosuite lounge from a mobster who bought the hotel, which is accurate within the story, but also weird that they described it as though it was an actual hotel and actual mobsters.
I love the faces I'm seeing, and I love this dumb episode. It's so silly. It's season 7. You have shit to do, but a heist episode in Star Trek, yes.
You're giving me Ocean's Deep Space Nine. Bring it. We get
Race in America commentary about like that's not how it was for us with Ben and Cassidy talking, and she gets to say no, but it's how it should have been. Commentary, yes. I love it.
Also, because I've had a few, I'm just going to rant on a specific individual who shall remain nameless, mainly because I don't remember his name. But there was some jerk-off fan who commented earlier today on, I forget whose site or which social media platform it was, but basically made a comment about how they were turned off in this episode when Sisko spoke to Cassidy and referring to Black people or people of African descent as our people. Because he said, in the 24th century, I thought humans were all one. Yeah, equality doesn't mean that your culture ceases to exist or that you forget your own history, fuckface. So you're not a Star Trek fan, even though you were a top fan on the site that I read. Of course it was a white person.
It was a white person, yeah.
And he's a top fan on a Star Trek site, and he can go fuck himself because he's not a top fan of anything. In fact, I can guarantee you he's also not a top. So moving on.
Man, I love that you know this.
Oh yeah, I learned that from Bob the drag queen.
Well, share.
Oh, it's just like you. Joanne, please correct me, but is when a Black person touches their palm, because typically Black palms are on the lighter side. It's like they look like that. They don't look like us.
Oh.
It's code, so you can talk about white people. You know, was he?
Tawny Newsome did it once on an interview that I saw recently. She's like, it was great. It was great. She was like, that sounds like you people.
Yeah.
Forgetting what in reference to, but yeah, it's.
She does it a lot though, but yeah.
Well, we earn it a lot. White people be whiting a lot.
And the typical responses, of course.
I liked the outfit.
Costuming was great.
I liked the costuming, but
the slow walk, yes.
The plan was good. The actual heist itself was clever.
Kira getting to like it's a silly kind of growth, but Kira Nerys, who we are introduced to as someone who hates the idea of the Federation coming in, really aggressive towards the Ben Sisko, now is like fully participating in a holosuite that she used to hate, seducing a hologram. Like, great.
She was hot. Sickening.
Well, what happened to your head?
You cold?
I don't know. I was feeling things. I hate this episode.
Yeah, no, I hate
emotions and feelings.
I liked the costuming. That's it.
No, I know.
Yeah, so far,
I don't know.
So far, Krista likes costuming, and I screamed at a guy that I don't know. So go ahead. Yeah. What do you got?
The only good line was Sisko's to Cassidy. That's the only reason for it. And I could tell that Avery was like, we need a line about this. Like he probably read this and was like, I need some commentary on the fact that this is set in the 1960s. Like I know for sure he was like, I have to do that. But who gives a fucking shit about Vic Fontaine? This guy is so fucking annoying and he's sucking up so much of the oxygen of this season. I'm just like, every time he comes on screen, I want to fight him. Like I wish he was a holodeck and actually there was holodecks that existed and I can go and I can beat the shit out of him because like he frustrates the shit out of me because he doesn't add anything to the story. He derails it most of the time. You shut your fucking mouth, Trevor. You live 3 hours from me. I'll drive. I have your address saved in my phone. I'll find you. But I don't know. Please subscribe. Oh my god, Stanley. I don't know. I find he derails the show every episode he's in. Anytime there's a center of him, it derails it.
And why are we getting the whole song? Like we get it. He can sing like a 30 second interlude. Sure. Did you run out of like? Really?
I literally don't need the whole song.
Like we know these songs, they're not adding to the episode. It like you need 30 seconds for set dressing to like set a mood, whatever. But why is this episode of Star Trek in the middle of a war in your final season giving us this shitty concert?
Also, can I ask in a long ago episode, why is Worf going to Vic's club to listen to Vic sing a certain song that reminds him of Jadzia? I mean, the ways that they shoved this guy into the season, it's like I felt like a foie gras duck, like just shit shoved down my throat, and knowing I was going to die and provide some.
Vic Fontaine is the Enterprise D and or Spock of every new Star Trek license or project. So I swear to God, every new game, book, video, they're like, how can we put Spock into this? And every new license we get, they're like, what if we produce another version of the Enterprise D for people to buy? Shoving it down our throats, giving us nothing new.
Vic Fontaine just turned into a changeling all over Krista. It's basically he just missed it all over her, and she can't take it anymore. God,
the first 14
Benji is fighting us.
I was just like, the fuck are we doing? Were we not having this is the last season, motherfuckers. You're literally going to burn fuel for half the goddamn season with this guy and his full fucking songs. You know
what we're doing? We're voting on this episode.
Yes.
You know what? Elvis played Vegas as well, assholes.
Thumbs up. You're giving it a thumbs up?
No.
All that? You're giving it a thumbs up?
She's like, and I loved it anyway.
And I loved it.
I wanted to see if you were paying attention. I hated this episode.
That's how Krista expresses love. She just screams at everything and then says yes.
We got 27 minutes, y'all. We got to breeze through.
I know. We're gonna batch more than we thought we were gonna batch.
We've spent all of the time ranting about how they haven't focused on what they need to focus on in this season.
We've spent more time complaining about Vic Fontaine's than they actually spent at Vic Fontaine's. Season 7, episode 16, Inter Arma Enum Sealant Leges. And that was with 2.5 glasses of Prosecco. Bashir's trip to Romulus puts him at odds with both Romulan intelligence and Starfleet's covert Section 31. I will sum up this episode very quickly by telling you that I had to watch it the first time through 3 times to understand what the fuck happened.
Is this Adrienne Barbeau?
What?
We don't know who that is.
Is that code?
Yes, the actress who plays Kretek. Yes. The actress who plays Kretek. Yeah.
Yes. Who wasn't the actress that used to play Kretek?
Yes, she wasn't available. I had to look it up. I was like, who? Like, I had to
Yeah.
I only know
just
that.
Make her a different senator.
Yeah.
Why are we recasting in the same season? What is this, Zial?
That reminds me, the Romulan ranking and who gets assigned to shit is weird. We had a sub commander on the Defiant when they had a cloaking device for one episode, and then they're like, you just do whatever and send us reports. Then we have a senator, we have another senator, and then in the very last episode that we'll get to, it's a sub commander again who's along with the Klingon chancellor, Ben Sisko, and an admiral, not the chief of staff, and a sub commander in the Romulan Imperial whatever. Why? And yes, that's fair. That's a fair criticism. Let's move on.
So everyone show me your thumbs for the Latin episode. Okay.
Although I didn't understand it, but
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I didn't either. And and frankly, I say that, and after watching it several more times, I'm not sure I do still.
He was the evil Romulan is actually working for Starfleet Intelligence. That's it.
Don't do that.
Well, okay.
I already feel dumb saying it on in
Right.
front of everyone. Don't sum it up with one sentence and make me feel dumber.
Right.
Y'all aren't dumb. It was not done well.
He was like, you dumb bitch. This is what it was.
Yeah, he was just working for them the whole time, Trevor.
You guys, obviously.
Should we be bad? Let's be bad. Who's ordering fries? Episode 17, Penumbra. Esri steals a runabout to find Worf, who is missing in action. Sisko proposes to Cassidy Yates. Joanne explodes. Episode 18, Till Death Do Us Part. Destiny threatens Sisko's union. Gul Dukat involves himself with Kaiwin's vision, and Breen soldiers take Esri and Worf to the Jem'Hadar. And episode 19, Strange Bedfellows. The Dominion and the Breen prepare to ally as Esri and Worf await execution. Kaiwin unknowingly gets involved with a surgically altered Dukat, even though okay, yeah, whatever. Thoughts about these three intro, the intro to the end?
In the worst disguise since Clark Kent, Gul Dukat as Anjo, whatever.
Tanan, Anjo Tanan.
Anjo Tanan.
I'm not
Worf,
Gul Dukat. Look at my nose.
Yeah. Worf and Esri hooking up infuriates me to no end.
My head exploded.
Like it again, her age, like this is a 28-year-old actress playing a 20 to 24 maximum character. Worf is at least in his 40s, if not 50s at this point. He knows and she knows that you're not supposed to do this. It's just creepy. Creepy and weird. Like having the feelings and whatever, like this would have been a great place for his Klingon honor to kick in.
Can't even.
Gross.
I can't.
Yeah.
I liked her going after him.
Kai Wynn gets laid. Kai Wynn. Kai fucking Wynn gets laid.
And I'm over here in a dry spell for
Maybe
months.
off screen, but Kai Wynn gets laid. I can't even.
We all know it wasn't good. She's probably drier than a bucket of sand.
It doesn't, you know what? She wasn't the problem. Let's just correct that right now. Well, she's not the one that was the problem. He is
Fine.
Gul Dukat gives lazy top energy. Like
this is
She's
what
like
I
a change.
Gul
She's like a
Dukat
changeling down there. She's just.
Gives
Just
Say
a
it.
gold mist.
say it for me. I mean, and also, who are these people that surround her and provide her books and stuff? It's like literally, do you people not talk to anyone? Does no one, is there no tea circle? Is there no knitting? Is there no playing cards? Nobody says, what's with the piece in the big ladies room? Like
he sounds familiar. Why does his voice sound familiar?
Also, do all Kais get a book gay?
Yeah.
Like,
Right?
is he just the designated book gay? I don't.
Once you start asking for like the Charmed Sisters book, where you open up and all of the spells come out, shouldn't somebody be alerted? I mean, for real.
The prophets, at least.
I mean, it's I. Mm, 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 mm.
We get some political intrigue with the Breen being brought into the Dominion. Sort of a reverse Romulans coming in and balancing things out. Like, oh shit, the Breen, and they attack Earth. And
I would like to have learned more about the Breen.
They're explored in the books.
My fondest memory of the first run of this episode was I had just moved from Orlando back to Jacksonville, and my roommate in Orlando, this episode aired, and called me and said, Trevor. I'm like, what? She's like, who the fuck are the Breen? Because I had like basically made her watch all of DS9 up to this point, and then this episode aired, and she was very confused. So I did get that.
The Breen are just Princess Leia in the beginning of Return of the Jedi. They have the same mask.
Yes.
And they kind of sound the same. It's just Princess Leia in the beginning of Return of the Jedi.
It was actually Carrie Fisher in this episode playing Thought Gore.
Could
you fucking imagine? I want them so badly to cast Mark Hamill in something in Star Trek. Like,
yes.
How fucking sick would it be? They just randomly have Mark Hamill in there if they get him for like lower decks because we know he does voice acting. Like, anyway, throwing that out there.
Hey man, they got Iggy Pop. If they got Iggy Pop, they can.
Yeah.
And they should name him like he should be the president of the Federation, and his name should be like Space Stroller instead of Skywalker. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Mark Hamill.
I can't. Yeah.
I literally just wrote.
Your handwriting's abysmal.
It really is. I literally,
it looks
but
like
no.
ancient Bajoran. What the fuck did you just write?
I literally wrote Mark Hamill as President Wilson, which is the name of my President of the Federation character in a project I'm writing.
We are
Mind meld.
There you go.
We are as one. Okay, guys, let's vote on these first 3 episodes. Penumbra.
Yeah. Joanne's
trying to link with me while she votes, which is kind of hot. Till death do us part. And Strange Bedfellows. Oh, okay. This one's all over the place. That's an actual up. Now we're going to, let's see, we're going to group, whoopsie. We're going to group the next 3. Episode 20, The Changing Face of Evil. Episode 21, When It Rains. And episode 22, Tacking into the Wind. Starfleet headquarters on Earth is attacked by the Breen, and the Defiant is sent to maintain their foothold in the Chintaka system. Cisco commissions Kira to aid Cardassian rebels, and Odo has symptoms of a deadly disease that is ravaging the Founders. Kira engineers a plot to obtain Breen weaponry. Bashir seeks a cure for Odo's illness, and Worf denounces Gowron. Rip them apart, friends.
I love Kira and Garrick. If Kira ended up with a Cardassian, Garrick would be the one that I would choose in an open relationship, obviously, because they're both going to fuck twinks on the side. But I loved Kira teaching Cardassians how to fight. Got some really great scenes with Damar. That whole weirdness because they hated each other from last season, and he killed Zial, but now they have to work together. Killing having a Damar having to have a complete 180. This is a great example of like a side character to a side character getting some really good development, like Nog was to Jake at first, Damar was to Dukat at first. And we've had Damar since I think season 2 or 3. So like the arc be arcing, and it was great. Yeah, like the more of this spread throughout the season would have been great, because we're finally getting some of the warness back. Should we vote, or
I'm like,
anybody
don't,
else have
don't
thoughts?
yeah, my only complaint is that the equivalent of a militia colonel is apparently a Starfleet commander.
Yeah,
which
no,
should be a captain, but it's
yes.
because they removed lieutenant colonel from their rank structure. But it's just weird, and I don't like it. But anyway, she looks great in the uniform. Let's run through them.
Yeah.
The changing face of evil. So Earth is attacked, and Defiant attempts to defend the Jintaka system and is ultimately destroyed, if I recall.
hmm
I love that our thumbs went up at Earth is attacked.
Like,
Defiant
yes!
is destroyed.
Death to the Defiant. Also, I was kind of sad that they renamed the Sao Paulo. Like, just leave it the Sao Paulo. Like, why did we?
Or just name
Anyway,
give it, say this is the Defiant A. We delivered.
when it rains, so Kira gets her commission as a commander, goes off to teach the Cardassians, and we realize Odo is sick. And tacking into the wind, Kira engineers a plot to obtain green weaponry. I like this one too.
Yeah.
This is Luarin.
I don't remember this one.
I
This
loved
is when
her on
she-
the bridge. She pretends
ahead,
to
Sam.
be the Vorta. She's like, this is Luarin.
Oh, that one. Okay. Thumbs up.
No, I can't see you either. What do you want?
I am, but again, it's Kira being a good actress, or it's Nana being a good actress, being Kira being a bad actor.
Yes.
It's
Mhm.
I'm going to
Levels.
pretend like this is
Like-
what I know that Vorta sound like. Like what?
I heard this bitch say 3 sentences. I got this.
Mhm. Yeah, she's like, give me the face thing. Episode 23, Extreme Measures. Bashir and O'Brien enter an extremist's mind. It's just Sloan. To find the cure for Odo's deadly disease. This felt like it took way too long to get to a solution for me, but anyway, I'm ready to vote on it because I didn't like it. What do you guys think?
It's so fascinating to me rewatching this and seeing how like this is the first the creation of Section 31 in Kant, like this first time we see it discussed. That's just fucking mad boring. Like they don't really, they're not cool. There's nothing really exciting about them. The only thing that they've got going for them is like, ooh, it's Starfleet being bad. It's like, all right, girl, but like they're not interesting. The Sloan guy's kind of a bummer, and like they're not doing anything. It's just like, I don't know. Like I think the Tal Shiar are kind of cool, and like the Obsidian Order is really fun, but like but I feel like this gets wrapped up a little too simply. But like I just didn't think Section 31 was like cool spy shit. Like it was just like these guys are kind of lame. They just seem like now they'd be like Reddit incels. I'm like, girl, get over your fucking self. Like you're not doing nothing. Oh, you infected Odo. Blah. Like that's fine, but like I didn't feel the like sinister intrigue, the evil that this is happening. And then them to target Bashir, it's like you're targeting this creep. You want this guy on your side? This fucking weirdo medical doctor dude. Like I get it, he's smart, but like whatever.
Maybe they saw him. Maybe they've seen him in his spring ball outfit.
I mean, fine. Section 31 is like Eyes Wide Shut. Tom Cruise walking through the house with all the fucking the masks. Cool. Still fucking lame. But since then, like every like reiteration of Star Trek, everyone's obsessed with Section 31, and I was like, why? This was stupid. Like it's so
Right,
like
but it's just
teenage
one
boy
guy.
fantasy.
I like that it got fleshed out a little bit. Like it was an interesting idea that like needed some fluff. It got very little in Enterprise. Like execution wonky in Discovery. We'll talk about it over the next couple of weeks, but
it's just like it I love that the idea that this came out of like this became more prevalent because of the war we're fighting, and like we have to push our morals to some other group to do the bad things we know need to happen, but we can't do them because we're so self-righteous. But like we don't get that. It's just some creepy dude in a fun black leather shirt running around being like guy with the mustache, like, ooh, sinister, like tying girls to railroad tracks. It's just like, who gives a shit? It was just lame. I thought it was so lame.
Speaking of
Anyway.
fluffing, show me your thumbs again.
It's just stupid. Thank
Sideways?
you.
Okay. All right, it's a sideways. All right, guys, we're combining the last technically 2 episodes, but it's going to sound like 3. So we're going to go through Dogs of War and then What You Leave Behind 1 and 2. The Dogs of War. After Dominion forces destroy all Cardassian rebel bases, Kira urges Damar to rally his people, and the Federation prepares for a final showdown. As the war with the Dominion nears conclusion, the Federation Alliance receives help from an unlikely source. Kind of wish they didn't call it the Federation Alliance, but rather like the Alpha Alliance or something. And then finally, the end of the war brings changes to the station. Kai Wynn and Dukat enter the fire caves to wake the Palwraiths. Cisco fulfills his destiny. The Cisco returns. What are your thoughts, y'all? Let them out.
I will say the Grand Nagus Rom makes no sense, but also Ferengi, whatever. That like this is. I wish that they had sprinkled in changes to the Ferengi Alliance throughout the season, because like they gave us some fluff episodes. They could have like there could have been a line from Ezri's brother in Prodigal Daughter, like about like, oh, the Ferengi Alliance was supporting us, but then their new Congress decided not to do whatever. Like, I don't know, like, because it came out of nowhere. It makes no fucking sense. He's an engineer on a space station. He hasn't even been home in over a decade, lived home. Like, what? The whole Ferengi Alliance. That said, the Nagus gets to choose, I guess. So whatever, great. The wrap up of Kai Wynn's story, aside from the magic casting of it, like this, like the mythical stuff isn't the problem for me. It's the like, I have a spell book now, and I'm gonna say out some spells that like it didn't feel Bajoran ritualistic. It felt charmed. It felt very Star Trek Charmed. And so it was a little cheesier than I think they could have done with it. I like that she tried to do the right thing at the end. Emissary, the book. She referred to him as the emissary. So like she was like, oh, I fucked up. Whoops. I'm glad she's literally burning in hell. I do wish Kira got to kill Dukat. I love the space battles. The ships throughout the season were great. Even reusing some visuals, but yeah. Those are my thoughts.
I also wish that Kira had killed Dukat, but I also wish that in some of the final scenes, not the final scene, because the final scene of the series is one of my favorite. But in the final scenes as we're visiting the prophets, so we're in the wormhole, I would have enjoyed in completely different apparel when actually like being with Cisco. So she's in a completely different outfit. Her hair's down. She looks different. And there's a scene between Cisco and she's going off to study with the prophets or do something, and he refers to her as my child. That would have been not only the because we heard in season 4 and 5 some very powerful arguments from Wynn about how her faith protected her, about how her faith saved her. And yes, she had a crisis of faith in the end of season 7, but to have her realize that she was wrong, and to have the prophets, not because they wanted to be forgiving, because I have to connect them to some sort of Judeo-Christian belief of a God, but because they are who they are. it's not forgiveness. It's we're all universal beings. You're one too. You don't have to burn in hell because you made a bad choice. Like, you're going to actually learn the error of your ways, and
Unless you're gay.
your deep faith is in some way being acknowledged or rewarded in whatever it is you are now. Even though she's Space Karen.
I always, every time I watch this episode, I find it less and less set. Like, these two, like, I always consider these three episodes to be like one thing. Like, I've always found it less and less satisfying because it does feel really rushed to the end. Like, it's hard to wrap up so many things and really push to the end like this. I don't know whether they thought they might get a movie or something because the TNG cast got a movie. They thought that maybe they get a movie to wrap this up and like they had more time to kind of explore this, or they're going to get another season or something. I don't know what the circumstance of that is, like behind the scenes on the production. But I did feel like the stuff with Kira and is satisfying with the Cardassians, and then with them, with, you know, I found the poetic nature, the cyclical nature of some of the storylines to be very interesting, how this kind of their histories kind of tap back around. But I did find that the end, considering how much of a villain both Dukat and Kai Wynn have been throughout the whole series for different reasons, I would have wished that Kira was involved because she's very much a part of those issues. Like, it's always felt like it was Cisco and Kira versus Dukat and Wynn on some end of this. And it did feel like her being sidelined to kind of the Cardassia end of things. Like, it would have been real cool if that got wrapped up maybe a little bit before and she's with Cisco in this or arrives or something. Like, it did feel, you know, his path walks alone. There's that line from the prophets that he's supposed to do this himself. But I did find that there should have been, and I agree with Trevor. As much as Kai Wynn is just a fucking bitch, and every time she's on screen, I love a villain like that, where every time they're on screen they make me angry. Not like Vic, but angry because she's so good at being bad. I would have wished that there would have been a moment for her to kind of have a redemption, for her to kind of, yes, blame women, for her to have a redemption arc, because I feel like that would have been more powerful to the character, other than her just getting like burning in hell, which is like satisfying on a sad level, but I don't think speaks to the nature of the prophets and to the Bajoran religion and how what that character's faith meant to them. And I always felt like this time I felt it was so dissatisfying too. The confrontation between Dukat and Cisco is just like two guys fighting on a ledge. It was just lame. There was no climax to it. It's just like, okay, we got to wrap this up. He chucks him in with the book. It's like, okay, that's fine, but it does feel like it doesn't have the kind of, for lack of a better word, the biblical ending that this needed. Like, I needed something more complex. I needed something where because they don't really say much to each other. It doesn't feels like there's not a conversation of these people who are like, you know, leaders, spiritual titans of their time, what that means confronted with this, like on the precipice of this. And then like the book and like some of the other stuff was a little hokey, but it just, and that was just like, the space battles were cool. Like, I was like, hell yeah, give me that. But the backdrop of the physical war happening versus the spiritual war, I don't think the spiritual war was maybe treated as well or thought through as much. It just felt like it just ended a little flatly. But
yeah, and speaking of rushing through, we got to rush through the ending here.
Sorry,
we're coming up at the end of our time. No, that's not. We've all been ranting. This is what we love about the Salon. Trevor, let's get those thumbs for these episodes and then hear the count.
Dogs of War.
Let him slip.
And then What You Leave Behind, Part 1. And Part 2. I see thumbs wiggling. It's kind of adorable. All right. Season 7 is done. There were 9 thumbs ups, 12 thumbs sideways, and 5 thumbs down. So this was a very sideways season. There was 1 problematic gay alert, 1 tosser alert, no canon alerts, no bev alerts. I gave 69 bonus points to the entire Salon crew for talking about changeling sex to excess. The power of 3 points to Krista for constant reference to the Book of Shadows and excellent tie-in to Charmed. And negative 5,000 points to Vic Fontaine just for existing.
Yes. We did it. Everybody think about what you'll leave behind as I roll us out. Thank you all. This is super fun. This is one of the best parts of my week. I always love spending time with my Salon friends. I want to thank the audience. Hope to see you next week. We are going to be talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 1. We will be, over the next couple of weeks, talking about Season 1, and then Season 2, then 3, then 4, and then, Season 5 is going to be with us, and sadly, it's the last season, but we'll be talking about each season over the next couple of weeks, and then episode by episode with Season 5 until the end. Until then, live long and prosper. Goodbye, everybody.